You're listening to the Core Factors audio library, spoken versions of Core Factors articles and research. This piece is titled How Differential Intensity Weighting Improves the Accuracy of Type Results. The following narration preserves the original content and context of the written article.
How differential intensity weighting improves the accuracy of type results. Why accuracy still matters in type assessment. For many practitioners, type assessments are a way to help clients explore patterns of behavior, motivation, and growth. Yet nearly every coach or consultant has faced the same challenge. A client looks at their report and says, "I could be both." Moments like this raise questions not just about interpretation, but about measurement itself. How can we expect clarity if the underlying method does not account for human nuance? Most traditional type assessments rely on a forced choice format. Respondents must pick one of two statements, even when neither fully fits. The assumption is that being forced to choose will expose true psychological preference. In practice, that assumption does not hold up. People make nuanced, context-dependent choices. Many live comfortably in the middle ground between extremes. Forced choice design turns that complexity into data that obscures more than it reveals. Core Factors takes a different approach. The Differential Intensity Weighting Model, or DIW, was developed to measure not only which side of a preference someone identifies with, but how strongly they identify with it. Direction and intensity are what turn approximate personality results into precise ones. In other words, DIW helps practitioners trust that what they are seeing reflects the real person sitting across from them. What differential intensity weighting actually measures. At its core, differential intensity. Weighting recognizes that people are not binary. When individuals complete the core factors type discovery or type elements assessments, each item is rated on a graduated response scale. Somewhat like me, or very like me, rather than a simple either-or. This structure captures two essential data points in every response. Direction. Which side of a preference feels more natural, such as extroversion versus introversion? Intensity. How naturally or consistently that side fits, such as somewhat versus very. Each response carries a weighted numerical value that reflects both its side and its strength. Stronger preferences exert greater influence on the total score. The result is a clearer representation of preference without inflating it. For example, a client may lean toward extroversion, but indicate that it is only somewhat like them. That subtlety matters. A forced choice test would record that as an absolute extroversion preference. DIW records it as a modest preference, signaling both direction and elasticity. By building intensity into the scoring process, DIW aligns measurement with reality-based self-perception. It mirrors how people describe themselves in conversation. For practitioners, this means that every graph, number, and narrative in the Core Factors report tells a truer story. The problem with forced choice, where measurement noise comes from. To understand what DIW solves, it helps to examine what most assessments miss. In a forced choice system, every answer becomes a coin flip between two options. If a respondent struggles to relate to either option, they still must choose one. That choice introduces measurement error. This error compounds across dozens of items. Over the course of a full assessment, small uncertainties can accumulate into significant misclassification. Imagine a manager who identifies with both action-oriented leadership and deep reflection. Forced choice scoring may mislabel them depending on how they happen to answer a few uncertain questions. In statistical terms, this is noise disguised as certainty. DIW eliminates this problem by treating neutrality and uncertainty as informative rather than random error. A neutral response is excluded from scoring rather than misrepresented. Only clear, meaningful responses influence results. By measuring intensity alongside direction, DIW reduces false dichotomies. A respondent who consistently answers, "somewhat like me," across both sides of a preference will not be miscast. The data will show genuine balance. That distinction is critical in practice. When results reflect lived experience, the assessment becomes credible. The feedback session becomes productive rather than defensive. Why differential intensity? Weighting improves reliability and validity. Practitioners carry a responsibility to ensure that the information shared with clients is reliable, valid, and respectful of individuality. DIW strengthens both. Reliability. Because DIW captures degrees of similarity, it identifies stable patterns across time more effectively than all or nothing scoring. Clients tend to interpret nuanced items consistently across repeated assessments. This improves test-retest reliability. In core factors validation studies, reliability coefficients for DIW scored scales average between 0.88 and 0.93, demonstrating stability even with shorter item sets. Validity. Some instruments perform well statistically but poorly in lived accuracy. DIW improves criterion validity, meaning results align more closely with what individuals know to be true about themselves. In best fit validation studies, core factors assessments achieve 92 to 95% agreement with verified self-reports. This exceeds the 70% range observed with older tools. By measuring the gray areas where most people live, DIW brings type assessment closer to Carl Jung's original intent, exploring psychological energy rather than assigning labels. What DIW means for practitioners in real conversations. Measurement precision matters only if it improves practice. For coaches, consultants, and HR professionals, DIW offers 3 practical advantages. Faster client recognition. Clients resonate with nuanced results. When reports acknowledge degrees of preference, the data feels accurate. Trust builds more quickly. More meaningful feedback discussions. DIW invites exploration rather than debate. Instead of defending labels, practitioners can discuss how strongly tendencies show up and where flexibility exists. For example, you show moderate intuition. How has that adaptability served you in different roles? Reduced misclassification and retyping. Practitioners spend less time troubleshooting results. Borderline patterns are already accounted for in the scoring. DIW shifts the practitioner's role from explaining inconsistencies to exploring individual complexity. Data becomes a mirror, not a verdict. Redefining professional standards through precision. Psychological type work has endured because it helps people make sense of themselves. Its credibility depends on the precision of its tools. Differential intensity. Weighting represents a refinement that brings scientific rigor to a field often criticized for oversimplification. By honoring intensity, core factors asks better questions. How natural is this for you? When does this feel easy? When does it require effort? These questions lead to insight, empathy, and growth. DIW reflects core factors guiding philosophy of reality-based accuracy assessment. Instruments should match the person, not force the person to match the instrument. When assessments adapt to human nuance, they produce clarity that practitioners and clients alike can trust. For practitioners, that precision builds credibility. For clients, it brings recognition, relief, and the experience of being represented truthfully. Practitioner takeaways. Differential intensity. Weighting measures both direction and intensity of preference. Neutral responses are excluded from scoring, reducing measurement noise. Reliability averages between 0.88 and 0.93, with best fit accuracy reaching up to 95%. DIW encourages developmental dialogue instead of categorical labeling. It supports ethical, evidence-based practice through measurable precision. Take the next step with core factors. If you are committed to using assessments that honor both data and human complexity, explore how core factors can elevate your professional work. Experience the type discovery or type elements assessment firsthand. Explore how EQ Accelerator supports development alongside type insights. Discover the difference precision makes in your practice, your clients, and your results.
This concludes the audio version of this Core Factors article. You can read the full written version and explore related research at corefactors.com.